Calls from left-wing activists nationwide to defund and disband police come amid a sudden surge in crime across the country. One America's Pearson has more details.
As radical left-wing activists across the country continue calling for police to be defunded, officers everywhere are considering leaving the force for good. In Los Angeles, far-left Mayor Eric Garcetti has voted to cut the police budget by $150 million. In New York, far-left Governor Andrew Cuomo has already signed a series of sweeping reforms into law, which includes making police disciplinary records public. In Minneapolis, the far-left city council has announced their commitment to dismantling the police department once and for all. In Colorado, the leftist-controlled General Assembly is approving legislation removing officers' qualified immunity, meaning they can now be sued. These are just a few of the steps cities across the country are taking against police officers who are simply trying to do their jobs. As a result of these reforms and the anti-police sentiment stirred up by the national media, officers around the country say they're considering retiring early. Chief Alfonso Morales of the Milwaukee Police Department warns that law enforcement across America is being crucified, with others warning that police will soon begin quitting en masse. In South Bend, Indiana, some 80% of currently active police are thinking about quitting. And in Atlanta, officers there reportedly feel abandoned following the district attorney's announced charges against 2 Atlanta officers over the death of Rayshard Brooks. In response to the DA, there have been large-scale call-outs, with police refusing to come into work and instead calling out sick. In Washington, D.C., 71% of police officers are considering leaving the Metropolitan Police Department over proposed reforms. Along with experienced police leaving the force early, experts say they could have a tough time finding new recruits to fill their places. According to the Police Executive Research Forum, even before the current round of protests broke out, recruiting at police departments nationwide was down by 63%. In Dallas, Police Chief Renee Hall says 87% of the police budget goes straight to personnel. She warns that if their budget is cut, officers will be forced to quit. At the same time, the city is faced with rising crime. Historically, defunding police also goes against evidence that additional police directly result in safer streets. For example, in New York in the 1980s and early 90s, crime was at an all-time high. In Brooklyn in 1990 and 91, homicides in the city topped 2,200 both years. That's when a new program was started by then-Mayor David Dinkins, a black Democrat, called Safe Street, Safe City, which ultimately hired over 6,000 new police officers. Crime steadily fell in New York until, in 2018, just 289 homicides were committed across the city. Now it looks like those trends are going backwards. As New York pulls its plainclothes officers off the streets, shootings have already begun surging, with 38 victims reported just since last Monday, over 3 times higher than the same time last year. And in Chicago, Father's Day weekend turned into the bloodiest so far this year, with over 100 people shot and 14 killed. Experts warn that this is just the beginning, and that as long as police are being defunded and pulled off the streets, crime will only continue to worsen. Pearson Sharp, One America News.
Want to see more videos like this? Click on the link below and subscribe to One America News on YouTube, and call your cable provider and kindly demand that One America News is added to your lineup. Call and subscribe today.